smart girl, and I learned all the things that young girls learn in girls' school, not drinking too much at parties, making sure that you walk with keys in your hand, key fist, yep, and not dressing to attract those kinds of guys, girls' school. And I also learned how to use my behavior to assure that no one would assault me. But I met my abuser my freshman year of college, and I didn't really like him all that much at first. Turns out I probably shouldn't listen to that. No. But without me realizing it, he started to systematically take control of every aspect of my life. So in between homework and class and work, I had to find time to cook and clean and spend time with him at his job, and he required it. So on Pearl Harbor Day that year, I went to my parents' house for dinner. He secretly asked my dad for permission to marry me, and my dad responded with, "Just make sure she finishes school first." So I got engaged on Pearl Harbor Day in the parking lot of a Walmart. And this was my new normal. So he had wanted to move and convinced me in his usual grating, verbally abusive manner that it would be good for me to transfer schools, come here to Grand Valley, and get away from my family. So we headed south. I arrived at my new home, and it quickly became a prison. My house wasn't clean enough. Didn't get home from work or school soon enough. I wasn't pleasing him sexually, not that he really had any room to talk or anything to base on. Let's be real. I believed every word that he said, though, when he told me that I was nothing, and I should have seen it coming. I should have known the warning signs. But ridiculously busy, ridiculously in love people are also ridiculously stupid. So my first mistake came one night while we were arguing about the type of birth control I was using. He averred it could cause infertility, blah, blah, blah. I told him I wasn't sure if I wanted kids, and he asked why, and this was my problem. I said, because you're just like your dad, who was also abusive. Not a good choice. He hit me, and I was shocked and dumbfounded and unable to speak or move while my ears rung, and he hit me again. And then came the verbal tirade and the string of insults. Quite frankly, too vulgar to really cheer here. The fight ended. They always did, and he didn't apologize because it wasn't his fault, it was mine. Kind of always was. But I apologized because I always did, and that was my new normal. But every time was worse than the last. I was slapped, I was kicked, I was choked, I was held down, and at first he was careful not to leave marks, but eventually, didn't care about that either. So I did what I could. I cleaned more, I cooked more, I tried harder in bed. But after 3 years, I was a little bit exhausted, and then I found out that I was pregnant. He had before threatened to punch me in the stomach till I threw up a fetus, which is a really super great thing to say to anybody. So if it ever happened before we were married. But he basically just kicked me in the stomach until I miscarried, and I had some broken bones as a consolation prize for my unwanted living room abortion. The only positive that happened in my life was that I had managed to finally make some friends, and when he got a job working third shift, it gave me a chance to actually get out and be a normal person. So one night I packed up my belongings, including our bed, and I moved out, which is harder and sadder than you would think. So what was my normal now? Well, for the first few months it was sadness, it was confusion, it was a lot of crying. But mostly, I became social again. I began to find happiness. So it's been 11 years. 11 years. And my normal has changed a lot in that time. It took me 3 years to even tell my parents about it, because why would you tell your parents about that? I never really talked about it with my close friends, and I always disclosed it to new partners, because triggers and stuff, but other than that, it was just something that happened, and I didn't want to talk about it. But then something more happened. I started working in radio in 2007, and eventually I made my way up to being an on-air talent. So during my time working at the station, I began to develop a close working relationship with the folks at the YWCA here in West Michigan. I told them my story, I toured their facility, I got involved with them. I learned of their services, and I wished that I had known that those were things that were available to me when I needed them to be. And then in 2011, oh, there's my dog. Something more happened. I suddenly had a boss. He's here, by the way. Thank you, Tom. who wanted me to talk about me. He wanted me to talk about my life experiences, and I don't really know if the switch flipped, but I started to talk about it. Talk about it in detail. I actually talked about it to the point where it made people uncomfortable, and I didn't care. Be uncomfortable all you want. I fully discovered my new normal. This was the right normal. But I also found a man, not the same person, but he's also here at the same table. He treats me the way that I should be treated. He treats me with respect. He treats me as an equal. He loves me. He's the love of my life, and he's my very best friend. He understands my past. He knows it for what it is. He deals with my weird triggers, because those are still things. So in the time since I started speaking out, dozens of women have reached out to me, asking what they can do to help a friend or what they can do themselves. They've disclosed their inner workings of their own relationships and asked me for advice and for resources, and I've given my phone number to complete strangers. Told them not to hesitate to call me. So now, I yell about the YWCA from the top of my lungs. They're an amazing resource for women here in West Michigan, and this is my new normal.